something similar. Yeah, thank you. And then that's what we just did. So, but again, it's a gamble. It's sort of this opinion-based creativity. So it's very interesting stuff. And then it almost ties into the definition of like, how do we talk about intellect, right? It's the ability to, what is it, like perceive abstraction?
Have you seen our show? Intellect never comes up. Yeah, we don't.
We don't talk about it. Good stuff. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, it relates to that. It's like, okay, is IQ essentially related to creativity? And there's a lot of evidence that says, okay, it's not the only thing that matters, but people who tend to be open and be good at solving problems are able to sort of solve these creative problems in their head. How to express an idea. Is it on paper? Is it with language, like we said? Is it dactylic hexameter, like Homer? Like whatever it is, whatever medium you want to choose. So it's very hard to define, I think, is the moral of the story.
There's I read an article. I can't remember for the life of me where it came from, but it was talking about how creative people, like if you're super creative, you lack in areas like common sense or the ability to keep things neat and orderly. Like creative people are notoriously messy, and they like the and I'm sure that doesn't apply to everyone. Like you can find outliers, but for the most part, right. They were saying that it's and it's true. Like it's for me anyway. I'm horribly messy, and like I might have a pile of stuff or things laid out everywhere, but I know where everything is. In my pile of chaos, I know exactly where everything that I need.
Right, like that's your system, your chaos. You know where to get stuff in 2 seconds. Someone else couldn't find it, but you know your system.
Yeah, I just wonder why. I wonder sometimes where that connection is. Like why that's the case. Why are all creative people messy like that? Like why does that run?
It's interesting. I've looked into the psychology of it. I've looked into the psychology of it too, and it's like you're absolutely right. It's not a small percentage. It's an incredibly large percentage. And if you think about it, there has to be this separation, because like for a creative person to even exist in the world, right, in the society, which is really the collective game that we've all been grandfathered into and agree to play, or society, like, okay, here's your points you can get. It's called money. That's how you survive. And you can do these different things and get money. It's so fun, right? So it's like it becomes strange to like define, and I can get into the public school system too, which is a whole other thing. And I think it's it's good at crushing creativity, right? But I think at the end of the day, people are trying to be a creative person, to get back to it. You have to have the separation from orderly, from industriousness, because at the same time, it's a gamble to be a creative person, is what I'm saying, right? To like make money in this society. It's like, what are the actual percentage of creative people about? It's incredibly low, because we think of, okay, let's think of popular musicians. Like you can name a few off the top of your head, I'm sure. Or let's think of, movie stars, right? And we think of these as oftentimes like, oh, that's how you make it big. You're creative. But how many people, I can tell you myself, it's why I got into YouTube, how many like incredibly talented people, like some of the best opera singer I've ever heard, the best dancers, all these people go to auditions every day and fail. They never get a part. It's not even that they do all right. They just don't get a part, because there's so many people who are just as good or better, right? Or, maybe they can sing and dance. So it's such a incredible gamble, I think, to be creative, that you have to have some lack of connection to like, okay, everything needs to be planned out. I need to have a plan for my future, for my finances. You have to take that gamble, right? So
I think to go back to me being in prison again, some of the most creative people I've ever met were in there, and I think that sometimes, yeah. And I mean, I was amazed. Like I was one of these people that I was always like a goody two shoes growing up. I was super Christian, and
right.
I never got in trouble. So I always had in the back of my mind, people who go to prison, they deserve it, and all they want to do is commit crime and all this stuff. But when I went there, I learned that that's not the case, and even with because of like even the food situation, this was where people just will blow your mind in there. But they're able to take everyday food items that we take for granted out here, like chips and tortilla wraps, and create things that are outstanding. And the way that they there was one guy that took a bunch of honey buns, and I know this sounds on a bigger level really small, but it was amazing to see. But they would take like honey buns and all of these like candies, chop them up and form them in a way they put it in they put that dish in the microwave, would microwave it, and it would fluff up like a cake. It was just like a cake. I'm telling you, like no lie, it was just like a cake.
Culinary masterpiece.
But not only that, they would take the inside of like chip bags and cut them in a way to braid them together and create like picture frames for guys who would get pictures taken on Fridays. And these picture frames look like, like metal picture frames because it was the inside of the bag. It was that shiny like aluminum thing. Mm-hmm. But when you're in that situation, I think sometimes you can be forced, or you're put in a situation where your mind has to adapt, and that can unlock creativity as well. When you don't have the things that you have on the outside, you get in situations where you're forced to unlock that part of the brain that normally on the outside, maybe that's not the case, but in there, absolutely, it taps into something that they're able to learn they didn't know about themselves. So I think environment would have a lot to do with it too.
Yeah. And you're so right about the limiting, right? Like limitation is what really breeds true creativity, because again, back to Homer, dactylic hexameter, right? For those who don't know, it's just the number of syllables per line or feet in the Greek, right? And in that situation, it's so limited. It's so limited, but it gives this beautiful structure to not only the creative process, but the poem itself. Right? And it has this sing, and there's a lot of, theories about how they would have actually sang it when it was, passed on orally, but it's just so interesting. And the same thing with Shakespeare, right? Why Shakespeare is so captivating, right?
I had a friend who was well known in the community, the area. He could go to anybody's house at any house party. Doesn't matter what you had in the cupboard. Whatever you had, he could make a culinary dish out of. It was Frito chips. Wow. It doesn't matter. If it was ding dongs, it wouldn't matter. He was infamous for being able to make the most culinary type dishes out of the
wrong
most
kind of show, Steve.
Well, I mean, it goes by what you're saying, that it's in it. You have to work with what you have in the cupboard, right? And by the way, since you like opera, I should have said Hostess Twinkies.
Yeah.
By the way, I am convinced one day that after the apocalypse, Hostess Twinkies will be the commodity that we use for trade and barter. It will no longer be like a normal fiat currency we have. It'll be Twinkies, trust me. But if you like opera, I'm gonna have to send you something. Have you heard of an opera singer called Tarja? She sings for a group called Nightwish. If you like operetta, I'm gonna introduce you. Okay, the best operatic singer of all time. Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, outstanding! You are my friend, extremely well informed.
What is it? The End of All Hope. I remember that song. That was a cool song by
Nightwish. My favorite was actually a song that they did called "If I Had an Angel."
Oh, I know that song. Yeah,
amazing.
It's old school.
Yeah, amazing tune.
Yep.
Oh, Steve's bromancing hard. Philosophy, opera.
I love this guy, and I'm straight as can be, and I'm in love already. I just don't be jelly.
You're winning him over, Phil. You're winning him on, Phil. So you said something interesting there a second ago about how the public school crushes creativity. Let's go into that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Absolutely. And I think it's just the structure. Like we all know at this point that it was essentially, they were breeding factory workers. We're looking at 100 years ago that the public school system was kind of solidified in as it functions today, right? It's like bells. That was the bell, in the factory. They're training you to be a good worker, and, okay, all the desks in a row and everything. And, it's just, it stifles a lot. And of course, the bigger issue that a lot of, pretty much every teacher I've ever either had or that I know now who's grown up and become a teacher has problems with is, having to teach for the tests. And I think even teach is the wrong word for that, for the test. It's just memorize this stuff, cram it so you forget it right after, just to pass the test. And then, because, I have to have standards, academic standards, right? So it becomes really tough. And then you look at, there's this school, my friend Spencer, who he's awesome. He's in a lot of my videos. He teaches at this amazing school in New York City. And it's like this progressive school, and there's not even any closed spaces in the school. They don't want to separate the children and the teachers and give this like weird divide and kind of the psychology that goes with that, right? They want to have everything open. You can always just walk up to your teacher and talk about anything. I taught like a kung fu class at this school. They're just like, yeah, come on and teach stuff. And just seeing the children there, for example, everybody's so happy and running through the halls and excited to learn and everything. And it's more of an open forum, right? Because teaching at this point is just, okay, read this. I don't believe it's teaching to say, okay, here's a couple slides, take those notes down and read 20 pages tonight. And then it's the same thing. Like, how's that teaching, right? It should be sort of, I'm a person who has higher knowledge, and there's an open forum where you actually do have some knowledge because you read the material last night, and then you can clarify with me, and we can have this exchange of information because I'm the authority on it, right? And we can kind of learn together. And if there's enthusiasm, let's pluck that. That's good. This person wants to learn about, in my case, okay, I want to draw. I want to make movies since I was like 4 years old, right? And of course, everybody said, you don't know what you want to be at this point. Wait till you get older and everything. And here we are, right? But at this point, it's stifling. No, you got to do mathematics. You got to do this. You got to do the sciences, and it's just sort of this perpetuation of the old ways, the structure, the factory working. So that's just a vague idea of it.
Do you think that it might have something to do with the amount that we pay teachers as a whole? Like there's no incentive for. My mother was a teacher, and there were many instances where the budget was such that she was buying stuff for her class out of her own pocket, and it's that's I think
not a rare story, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know it happens all the time, and I don't think it should, because that stifles not only the ability of the things that you can do in a classroom, but the kind of inspiration or motivation for a teacher to want to get up and go that extra mile, just because it's like what they're getting paid to deal with. I mean, you think of kids nowadays, always probably going to be on their phone. They're constantly battling that sort of thing. It's more of a hassle than they want to deal with. So what you wind up getting is subpar teachers in a lot of cases because of that, or shortages.
Absolutely.
It's a war zone too.
It encourages that.
Dr. Kroon, who was on this episode, not on this episode, but on the show before, just posted, and he told me also as well. And this is not private because he posted it. He had just been attacked by a student who actually stabbed him in the back of the head and drew blood.
Who?
Yeah.
Dr. Kroon.
Dr. Kroon.
Yeah, the astrophysicist.
Usually not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, he literally just posted earlier. He had told me before, and then he posted it because now it's public. But yeah, he got stabbed in the head by a student. He's like, screw this shit. I'm out of here. It's not a fun profession. I mean, it's not. These students are going way out of control.
Right. And then in my case, like, I've had a handful of teachers I can count on one hand, and they have just those are the people who changed my life and inspired me. But the funny thing is, most of it's outside of class with those teachers. It would be, for instance, here's a good example. So just the interest and the enthusiasm. I remember in college, I had to take astronomy just to kind of polish out my major. And, it's nothing deep, just intro astronomy. But I remember just being so interested and so enthusiastic about, okay, let's talk about dark matter. Let's talk about space. Like, let's get into the deeper questions here, And then after class, I would stay 30 minutes after a lot of classes just talking to my professor and so excited to learn. And, we go back to class and it's just such a low level, basic, fundamental understanding of everything. And nobody asks interesting questions. And I'm over here just chomping at the bit to ask the deep questions. Nobody wants to talk about them. So yeah, those teachers, I've had a few other ones too. After class, they're always, talking. A few students would meet up and we just talk about the deeper ideas. And that could be, classical studies or the art classes themselves, the filmmaking. And those are the people that they've somehow shined through this broken system, in my opinion. And that's why they're just champions and the ultimate teachers in my eyes. They've really, grown me or helped grow into who I am today, I think.
There's a lot of talk nowadays about having a kind of a radical way to change how we do education, and that's online, being able to a la carte your learning experience by signing up for classes based on what is tailored to you and what you're interested in, and doing it online. Do you think that that's something that could catch on, or is the physical, you being physically in a place, school?
Well, that's what
you think there'll be a big difference there.
It depends on the way, because for me, again, it's about the exchange. It's about the exchange. Like I said, there has to be this authority, this absolute authority on the subject, like a master or whatever word you want to use, right? And there has to be an exchange between someone who has already taken it upon themselves to learn. But for me, that's the reading. I've read 5 books on this. Let's talk about it because I'm truly enthusiastic about it. You have to have this exchange. You can't just be, like I said, here's a couple slides. Well, that's not teaching. I can go on YouTube and watch a couple slides. I'm not actually learning anything on a deeper level, right? If I told you guys I